hello, everybody, and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're so glad that you could join us today. Moonshine Jesus Show is brought to you by progressivechristianity.org. Hope you'll check that out. I'm here today with my good buddy, Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing great, Caleb. I'm looking forward to this. Those last two movie-length episodes, man. I can't wait till we dig in.
That's right. Stranger Things, Season 4, Volume 2. We're going to dig into that. But first, before we do, we've got some things we got to tell you because we're not going to be here this time next week. And that's because we are going to be somewhere on Saturday. We're going to be at the Wild Goose Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to you, Goosecast. So that's going to be 4:15 Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, and we're gonna have some great stuff for the folks who show up.
Giveaways. Yeah, we got giveaways. We're gonna have first 20 people. We have these glass moonshine looking jugs that have the Moonshine Jesus Show logo. Yeah. We will have a cocktail, a themed Thor cocktail in there for you for the first 20 that show up. So we got t-shirts to throw out to folks who participate in the episode. We got stickers. We got beer huggies. It's going to be a good time. We're going to have a good time, and we got swag to give away, man.
Swag. I mean, swag and alcohol. Why wouldn't you come and listen? If you're at Wild Goose Festival, we want to see you 4:15 on Saturday to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder, to drink together, to get to know each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. But today, we are talking about Stranger Things, Season 4, Volume 2, the epic conclusion of this season. And we have got some themed drinks. Mark, what have you got today?
Well, I am... since we're repeating the show, I'm repeating my drink. I liked it so much the first time. This is called an 11. It's bourbon. It's egg whites. It's got maple syrup since 11 loved breakfast. Some bitters in it, and a little Eggo waffle as my garnish there. What about you, sir?
I love that. It's a whole meal, a whole breakfast.
It is. If I remember right from the last time, it tastes like a bright, fresh, lemony breakfast. Because that's the other thing I didn't say. There's a bit of fresh squeezed lemon in there as well. It's basically a twist on a whiskey sour, but they call it an 11.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, sir?
Eggo and all. Okay, so usually what I do, Mark, is I usually think what visually communicates what we've been watching, right?
Fair.
And so that's what I did last time. Last time I did like an upside down, and I had this red thing with this black licorice, a little carved out Vecna and stuff. And so this time I asked myself a different question. I asked myself, what does the upside down taste like? Not just look like. I want to know what it tastes like.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit different since we've done this before.
I like it.
And so I was thinking about Vecna, right? Whenever he's sent into the upside down, he gets struck by lightning. That's what gives him this grizzled appearance. And we see these particles in the air. And to me, it kind of looks like ash. And so I'm thinking,
I think so.
I need something smoky. I want something really smoky.
I already like where this is going.
I thought it's got to be Mescal. I want some Mescal. And so I decided to make a Mescal Old Fashioned, which has become one of my favorite drinks. I love this. So equal parts Mescal and tequila and some simple syrup and, an orange wedge. So it's very smoky and delicious.
It sounds exactly what the upside down would probably taste like. So
yeah, I like it. Yeah. Cheers to you, Mark.
Cheers to you. Here's to a good show, man. Oh yeah. I definitely like it as much as I did the first time. How was that? You were saying it's one of your favorites now.
I do. I love it. If you like smoky stuff, give it a try. Okay, so we're going to have a drop. We're going to come back, and we're going to geek out a little bit about Stranger Things, Season 4, Volume 2.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show, where we are talking this week about Stranger Things, Season 4, Part 2. There's a lot that goes on in these two movie-length episodes. So let me kind of give you the setup. I've tried to condense this as much as possible, but there's a lot going on. So Season 4, Part 2 picks up directly where Part 1 left off, with our heroes scattered and Vecna's plan for Hawkins picking up speed. 11, who's back at the lab, gets her powers back. She's not just got them back. She's kind of leveled up on those powers. Hopper escapes the prison in Russia, unites with Joyce, only to realize that they have to fight their part of the battle back in the prison. Then we got the Pizza Boys. The Pizza Boys set out to rescue 11 and end up assisting her in basically what she's calling piggybacking into Max's mind, where Max is confronting and hopefully distracting Vecna. So that the rest of the crew can destroy his body while he's in a trance and is mind-stalking Max. And at the same time, Eddie and Dustin are entering the Upside Down to provide yet another distraction to keep Vecna occupied. But in the end, Vecna wins, sort of, and the Upside Down begins to slowly take over Hawkins. So what did you think of the episodes?
Well, okay, so I love the episodes. It was a lot of fun. I've loved this season. This is probably my second favorite season. I think I'm holding firm to that. That's what I said last time as well. I think season 3 is probably my favorite. This one, in large part, as we mentioned the last time we talked about this, felt like a little convoluted with all the storylines, though I think in some ways Volume 2 justified having so many storylines going on all at once. I think it was necessary. We saw, in order to really fight Vecna, you had to hit him from all these different points. So I liked it. I thought it was entertaining.
I agree.
And the Duffer Brothers caught quite a bit of flack for the last episode in particular. It was 2 hours and 20-ish minutes. And so a lot of people said, break it up. Why didn't you break it up? And they said there wasn't really a good stopping point. And I will say that it was almost constant action. And so we found ourselves like pausing halfway through and being like, whoa, that was intense.
That's a lot.
We gotta take a break from this. It's a lot. It's intense.
It is, yeah.
So I loved it. How about you? What did you think?
I really did too. Some of the stuff that we talked about the last time. By the way, big shout out to you who figured out the whole Vecna is actually in control of the monsters and everything that's going on. Yes. I wasn't convinced. I thought he was like the second in charge. You nailed it, man. You absolutely nailed it. Like, we do find out that was going on. You and I both did, like you mentioned, talked about how there's like 4 different storylines going on, and it's hard to figure out what's important and not important. I love the way that in these last 2 episodes they showed that, and I want to even get back to this when we go to the Theopolitico section a little bit, because of something I noticed that I want to get your opinion on. But I love that they had all these different avenues where they were going after Vecna and how important each role was. But also, the Duffer Brothers are incredible at telling a story, weaving it together, making each part count. And all of this action happening, and they always figure out these moments to pull us off to the side and develop the characters and give us a little bit of a backstory and several love stories, which I think are actually one of the key points of the whole show, is that it's these communities and these close relationships that give us the strength to overcome the evil things. So I thought it was brilliant. There were some actors that I had been hoping to see more from. The Noah who plays Will. I thought there were some very significant moments with him that just warmed my heart. I loved it so much, and I feel like he may even have. I kind of feel like he's going to have a really big role in season 5. We've not seen much of him. He's kind of been a side character. I think he's going to become incredibly important in season 5.
I think you're right, and I think maybe my favorite scene in the entire series happened over these last couple of episodes, and it's that scene in the van where
Mm,
he's talking to Mike about his love for Elle, but it's coded, right, for his love
right.
for Mike,
It's-
and it's his way kind of expressing his love for Mike and coming out to the audience without really coming out. But the scene where after he's kind of confessed this, and he sticks his head to the side of the window and his hands by his mouth, and he's crying, and
oh
and
yeah.
and is
Mm.
looking at through the rearview mirror. Oh, it's heart
Heart
wrenching.
wrenching. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely is. And he tells Mike in that scene, Mike is he shows this picture that he's been working on since I think season
Right, right,
one,
right.
where it's a three-headed dragon, and they're all in the kind of medieval gear fighting. And Mike's the first one, and his shield has a heart on it. And
Hmm.
he tells Mike, he's like, Mike, you're the heart. Without the heart, we'd all fall apart. Which I
Yeah.
think may be the theme of this whole show anyway. But that for me,
Mm-hmm.
I love that they gave him that line, because that line for me comes back um, when Elle is actually in Max's
Yeah.
mind fighting Vecna
Uh-huh.
and is pinned up against the door. I got a question about that. Remind me to come back to
Yeah.
the door question.
The
Pinned up
door.
against
Yeah.
the door and starts giving up hope. Just
Hmm.
it feels defeated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's when Mike leans in and starts to confess that he loves her that she
Yeah.
finds that strength again. And so for me, I love the connection between the three of them, how that has worked in and out. And I love they gave him that line of without the heart, we fall apart. And it was actually his actual heart and confessing his
Yeah.
heart that
Yeah.
ultimately helped
See.
everyone save the day. Because without 11, it wasn't going to happen.
Right, right. And I'm not going to say too much about this because this is theological, but I mean,
Mhm.
that's like the point of life, right? Is
Right,
that
right.
if we encourage each other, if we support each other, if we're able to say how much we care about each other, that
Yeah.
empowers us all to do better. And so I love seeing that in this display, and I love those scenes, and I agree with you. I think that it was some of the best scenes in the whole series that came out
Yeah.
in volume 2, and some of the best scenes concerning Eddie too. Were you an Eddie
Oh my
fan,
God.
Mark?
Yeah, I think just like most people, they set us up to not like Eddie to start with,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and then he very slowly grows on you. He ultimately has
Uh-huh.
become one of my favorite characters because he's such a stereotype buster. He's
Uh-huh.
a metalhead who can shred. He's also a D&D nerd.
Oh, and boy, can
and
he
it-
shred in the
Oh,
upside
yeah.
down. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But he's also this really incredibly nice guy too, who actually gives a crap
Yeah.
about a lot of things and cares about people. I
Mhm.
love the way they
Mhm.
break down the stereotypes with him very much.
Yeah.
I really, when you get when everyone's learning that when the Duffer Brothers introduce a character at the beginning of a season, it's probably not going to
They
make it to the next season.
might not make
So,
it.
as he was growing on me, I was kind of like, oh no, because this is the throwaway character. This is the character that in the writer's room saves all the other main characters, because if we get you to love this new character, we can kill him or her off without having to actually sacrifice any of our main people. And so I was like, oh, I kind of thought it was going to happen. I mean, didn't you
But
kinda
I've got
see
a
it
question.
coming?
Yeah, but I've got a question about that, Mark. This
Mhm,
is one of my points of frustration about it. Is
Okay.
did Eddie have to die? I mean, other than for logistical reasons, because the cast is huge. I saw
Right.
Millie Bobby Brown, who plays 11, saying, "Hey, the Duffer Brothers should Game of Thrones this thing, and get rid of a bunch of characters." So maybe for logistical reasons, but I mean, plot wise, did Eddie really have to die? I mean, they're there distracting the bats and the
Well,
upside down. Dustin goes,
yeah.
back to the other dimension. The bats aren't going to know. Even if he had kept riding on the bike, the bats were chasing him. Why did he get off the bike and fight the baddie?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, in terms of being well written, yes, he did, because we have to feel like everyone is really truly at risk. If no one dies, if no one gets really deeply hurt, it's hard to convince the audience that this is life and death and threatening if someone hasn't died. If everyone miraculously recovers, so I think someone had to. Someone had to die to make it clear in the storytelling what a real threat this is.
Couldn't
And
it have been
they
Jonathan? Or couldn't it have been one of them?
it had to be someone you cared about. It's the problem.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem. So I think it had to be done. I hate it because I was really growing really fond of that character. Someone had to go, and you know, if it's him instead of 11 or Mike or Will or Max or Dustin or Steve,
it could be Mike. Not Dustin.
Ouch.
Not Steve. Mike, man.
It can't be Mike. Mike is the heart. Without the heart, the story would fall apart.
I think they've all got. I think they've all got heart. See,
they do. But I think Will is right in saying that Mike is kind of like the heart that pulls them all together. Not that they all don't have heart, but he is kind of that is his heart that does ultimately pull the folks together and helps Elle come back out and be able to fight. But here's an odd thing I noticed, and usually if there's something like this, I kind of see the some symbolic nature of it and figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that when Elle and Sam are Max, Elle and Max are in Max's mind, and the Vecna is in there and has them both caught with vines.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting. There's all kinds of surfaces they could have been stuck to. Elle was stuck to a door, and Max was stuck to a window. And I wonder if that wasn't some really subtle, just tip of the hat of the role that they're playing in this Vecna story, in that Elle opened the door to
the upside down,
and Max represents a window, a way to come in and out, back and forth. And so I don't know, was there more than that going on? It just seems there were so many places they could have been. One was on a door and one was on a window, and it was like kind of the only door and window that was anywhere around. And it's like, what's going on?
I like that symbolism. So I was too like into the are they gonna make it? Is Max gonna make it? And Max is one of my favorites, so I didn't want to see Max go. And so
not at all.
But you're right, because it's that killing of Max, even though she comes back, that does, that is the one of the four windows that is kind of open, that ends up opening this huge gate for everyone to come into. So I like that. Maybe that's right. Maybe it is the important symbolism there. One of my other favorite characters besides I love Max. One of my other favorite characters is Erica. She probably is my favorite character. I love Erica. Yeah, she's
what is it? I mean, she is a very cool kid. I mean,
I think I fell in love with Erica around the time in season 3 she called Murray, "You bold bastard." He's like, "Why is this 4-year-old talking to me? I'm 10, you bald bastard." Around that time, she became my favorite, and so and she calls Eddie, along. He calls her, "Why is this preschool here?" or whatever. She said, "I'm 11, you long-haired freak." I love Erica, and so I love the scene too. So as Elle and Max are there, Elle's against the door, Max against the window, and Lucas is fighting for her life on in our dimension, right? And Erica is trying really hard to get in the door to come up the attic, and I thought there was some interesting commentary there on their relationship too. As Erica, she's not been real friendly towards Lucas, and they've not been real close. And she's trying desperately to come in and help, and he's screaming for Erica to help. And Erica, get help! And I thought there was something interesting about the sibling bond going on in the midst of that as well. So I love that.
I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
This one's out there. So is there any chance? So at the end of the show, we end up with Max in a coma.
Yeah.
And here's kind of my thoughts on what's going on. Like she was the fourth that had to die to open the connection between the Upside Down and Hawkins. And what happens is she dies, but they get her body back alive. But as we see when 11 goes into her mind, she's not there. And we know that Vecna absorbs parts, the skills, and even the person sometimes of the who he kills.
Right.
So I'm wondering if what we have here is like a not a full death, a partial death, and that's why there wasn't this immediate switch where Hawkins was the upside down, and what we have are cracks. Matter of fact, it's interesting. Much like there were 4 storylines and 4 people that had to die, the cracks come together in the city of town and makes 4 parts, which the clock rings 4 times every time the clock shows up for one of the 4. So there's a lot of those going on. But so I think maybe one of the keys in the next season is we've got to get her back into her body, because that might help close these things back down, because she was the last element to open that up. But my question's only is semi-related to that, right? That's my theory about what happened.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, could this be both Vecna and 11 were in her head when she dies, essentially?
Right.
And Vecna takes part of her, I'm assuming, with him. What's the chances that she comes back with some powers?
Ooh, I like that. I don't know, but there would be nothing cooler than seeing Max with powers.
Max and 11 together, these best friends. We have all these scenes of them over and over again on the bed, laughing, cutting up with each other, supporting each other. Having them, because Papa, Dr. Brenner basically says, look, you're not strong enough to beat him. I'm thinking, what if she has an adopted sister who also has these powers? Together, they just might be.
Oh, I would love to see that. I'd love to see 11 and Max team up to finish Vecna off and save Hawkins. I also know there's maybe a spinoff that's coming from Stranger
They have
Things.
announced that there will be, but they haven't announced what it will be or who it will be.
So Max and 11,
that would be interesting.
Maybe, I don't know.
A buddy
game.
movie. I'd love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we could go on and geek out more and more. Matter of fact, we would if you let us, but it is time for us to take a break. We're back on the other side with our Theo Politico segment.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show, where today we're talking about Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 2, and we are moving into our theology and politics section.
Woo-hoo.
And there is a lot going on here in Stranger Things that we can talk about. But here's where I want to start us off. Mark, there are a ton of theological and political themes, but the relationship between Papa and 11 is explored a lot more fully over the course of the season. And we get to learn more about why 11 was at Hawkins' lab and what all went on there, her relationship with Papa and with Juan. And 11, understandably, has very hard feelings about Papa. And there's this scene where after Papa has told her she cannot leave this lab where she's getting her powers back and all, and she says she wants to, she's going to.
And he can't stop her.
And he can't stop her.
That's
and then he does, and he puts this dampening collar on her and all, right? They're headed out because they are being attacked, and Papa is shot and is about to die. And in that scene, he asks for her forgiveness, and he calls her family, and she doesn't give him the forgiveness, and she leaves him there. Probably not much she can do, although we find out later that she can bring people back. Here's my question. She doesn't forgive him. Should she have? Are we obligated to forgive people when they ask it, or what's our obligation regarding forgiveness?
Well, for me, no. Ultimately, someone trying to make you forgive when they want you to really doesn't seem like forgiveness, does it? It feels like you're being forced. But at the same time, as you and I both know, having something like that inside and not ultimately finding a way to forgive. And there's all kinds of things that can look like. That doesn't even mean remaining in a relationship with that person. We know that holding those things in can ultimately eat you up from the inside out. So no, a matter of fact, absolutely has no responsibility to forgive then just because he's asking, nor do any of us. But it is something I think we all have to always be aware of and thinking about and figuring out what our timeline looks like so that we can be healthier and not hold that resentment. Because when you do that, you're letting a person own a part of you. And that's never going to be healthy in the long run. You've got to figure out what your process is and what your timing is to try to slowly let go of it. That's where I fall. I mean, what were your thoughts when that was happening? Because it's a powerful scene.
It is a powerful scene.
She doesn't not care for him. Like, as he's dying, instead of just dropping his hand, like, she very gently places his hand on the ground. So there's still this piece that recognizes him as a person that she has some kind of caring, feelings for.
Yeah. Right. And she is with him, and she doesn't just leave. She has the final moments with him, and so I think you're right. I think that's an important point, Mark, that, a lot of times people will demand forgiveness on their timeline, right? Because it's about making them feel better.
Exactly.
And it's not about you. It's all about them and what they want you to do in service to them, which a lot of times was one of the original reasons for feeling wronged is because of what other people want from you. So I think that when Jesus talks about forgiveness, and Jesus talks a lot about forgiveness, that he's talking about our exactly what you were saying, our own issues eating us up inside, and how it is better for us, but not how we owe anyone else anything.
Yeah.
And so I think I thought that was something interesting. Forgiveness was something interesting that was explored in this season. I also think that we had some savior motifs explored pretty extensively in this season. So here's what I want to know, Mark. If you take 11 out, right? Because she's the obvious Jesus parallels. She's got these powers and stuff in the same. Who do you think is the most Christ-like figure in Stranger Things?
Oh, that's a great question. All right. I'm going to, I've got two that I'm bouncing back. That's my hesitation.
Yeah.
I got two I'm bouncing back and forth.
There are a lot that do
there are plenty
very powerful things. Yeah. That's why I was curious to know what you think about this.
I think just based on the two episodes that this podcast is about, Eddie Munson, man, it's Eddie.
Yeah.
It's Eddie. Like, he sacrifices everything for everyone so that they can live and have a better life, possibly beat this horrible thing in the world. I mean, and it's so strange because we started off the season, this dude, he's rough around the edges and is a little too self-important. But I mean, have you got someone else, or is that your same person you to go?
Well, I think Eddie and Max. I think Max is another one that clearly, offers herself up, that takes off Kate Bush, and she's willing to sacrifice herself. And, she even, whenever she's grabbed by the vines in the Upside Down, is in the cross position, right? Which obviously is intentional. And so willing to sacrifice her life for everyone else. And so I think, we had several figures this season who were really living into that. But the more time that I saw people spending in the Upside Down, because this was the most we got in the Upside Down, and I found myself wondering too, and I'm hoping you have some insight into this, Mark, because I don't know what I make of this. So Here we spend a lot of time in the Upside Down, and I'm wondering what the Duffer Brothers are trying to tell us. Is there some symbolism in the Upside Down? Is that something theological? Is it something political? What commentary, or is it just like fantasy, just pure fantasy? And there's this other dimension. What's your take on this?
I'm gonna go off the deep end here. See if
I want to hear it. Yeah. You're gonna have
really,
something, I know.
It really hit me hard as I was watching it. So I think the Upside Down is actually counterintuitively the world that we currently live in, because it feels so upside down right now. I mean, the Decna is sort of the figurehead of the plutocratic autocracy that the U.S. has become. And so I kind of love this thing we hated in the earlier episodes of the 4 storylines, and how ultimately in this last bit, each one of them are working locally from the ground up. They're using love. They're coordinating between their groups in order to defeat this larger upside down world that has happened, that we can't all be together in the same place, but we can collectively, if we are well prepared, we lean on love and compassion and relationships, we coordinate together. There's not much that we can't overcome. And that's why I love that line that Will says to Mike, without heart, we'd all fall apart. That's what I think. I think this is very symbolic of overcoming this upside down, crazy, nutty, plutocracy that we're all living in right now, and all the horrific crap that comes out of it. Am I overthinking it?
We're living on the upside down.
I think I'm overthinking it. I don't know.
We like that. See, I knew you were going to have a great answer for this, and I
don't
love
know
that
if it was great, but it did bother me.
Yeah.
I mean, am I overthinking it? Is there any chance that is part of what they're doing?
I think you're right. I think that's a great part, and especially, most of Stranger Things has taken place in the era when Trump was president, and obviously, a lot of this was in concept when he was still the president, and we're still seeing the after effects of that, and we're seeing that with this obviously with the Supreme Court decisions, and we're seeing this this extreme conservative minority that has put these people into place, and we're dealing with all the effects of that. So I think you're right, and fighting Vecna a lot like fighting the man who's taking away rights in our current day. I like that. I've got one other question that I feel like we have to say before we end the segment, Mark.
All right,
we talked about it. We talked about it briefly earlier, but I think LGBT issues are prominent in this.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I want to know how you think they did with Will's coming out. I mean, we talked about it briefly, but there's a scene in the bus. Then there's that powerful scene, with Jonathan and Will in the pizza shop where they're saying, "Hey, you can always come to me," and he kind of comes out without coming out. I want to know how you think they did.
I think they did what they could do with this being set in the 80s, and they were very realistic about what it was probably like, even afraid to come out to your best friend, even afraid to come out to your brother. I love that the way they showed it was a version where there was a lot of compassion, particularly from his brother. And that's how I think we all need to learn to be when a person is having struggling to reveal something about them, that they're concerned how you react, that this compassionate response to it. But I always in these kind of things wonder if there's also wouldn't have been a large lesson that could have been learned if they'd have pulled out that character a little bit more, Will, and had maybe a one person who kind of recognized that they thought that maybe that he was gay and really came at him hard and was ugly about it. I think it would have been even more productive to see this balance between overcoming these horrible folks that are, let's not call them horrible, people who don't understand or it makes them uncomfortable and become very mean people caught out of that. I think it'd been really interesting to watch the Friends group support Will and confront that, because it all comes off a little, it's as sad as it is because it's the 80s and it was, very few folks felt comfortable coming out in terms of the percentage of the folks who were in the LGBT a group of folks. I kind of feel like it was a little too easy, not ignoring that he couldn't come out, and that's horrible. But what he did do was it was well accepted, which is a lovely lesson that we all need. But I think it kind of needed to be counterbalanced by it's not all, sunshine and flowers. There are folks out there who are really horrible and cause a terrible, terrible damage to folks who are trying to figure out how to live into who they really are.
Yeah, and they had those people that they could have used for that in this season.
Absolutely.
There are the people who are giving Elle a hard time. It would have been easy to
have one of them
have Will's sexuality as a part of that. So I think that's an important point. There's a ton of stuff we could talk about, and I would love to talk more about theology and politics of Stranger Things. But you know what? We got to try and make each other look stupid, Mark. And so I think it's time that we wrap this on up. We listen to the drop and we come back to make each other look stupid.
Yeah.
Moonshine Jesus, nobody scared. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for our Make Me Look Stupid segment of the show. This is a moment where sometimes we intentionally dig really hard and deep and try to ask a question that's unanswerable. And other times we just ask one that we're pondering and really curious of what the other person might think. And as I started a few weeks ago being a gracious host of this segment, gracious and benevolent host, Caleb, I will defer to you and allow you to ask the first question.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I don't feel like I need to ask a question because as you mentioned earlier, I mean, I already said Vecna was behind the whole thing. And you're like, man, no.
I was like, that's
not what's going to happen. And he was. I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, Mark.
Okay, all right.
So there's that scene where Max's character is in the hospital in a coma, and Lucas is reading to her. And did you notice what Lucas was reading?
I did. I can't remember the name of the book. It was a co-authored Stephen King book, and it's also the title that Steven Spielberg and the Duffer Brothers will next be producing for Netflix.
So The Talisman.
The Talisman, which it is about another universe, another dimension, and there's twins between the two. I know that much about it, but I don't know much more than that. But I love that they got that in there, and it does have a little bit of stuff that you can kind of see that they might be pulling some from it for this show. I mean, don't you think?
That's what I want to ask you about. So it is about mirror universes, right? So very similar and a nod to what's happening with the Upside Down. And no secret that they've drawn heavily on Stephen King and other horror classics to create Stranger Things. So I want to know, especially since you know about the stuff regarding the new Netflix stuff. I want to know if you think that the Talisman, him reading from the Talisman, was trying to tell us anything deeper about the season or about what's coming up. Is there anything here they've got in the Talisman, right? They've got mirrors of themselves it's kind of like the Upside Down, but there are more people and stuff. I want to know if that's foreshadowing anything.
I think it might be foreshadowing, but I think it might be foreshadowing a question that we should all have right now that I expect them to answer in season 5. And that is when we see number 1 go into the Upside Down as 11 cents in there, he comes out disfigured from the lightning, but he looks across a barren landscape and there's just nothing there other than this dust that he starts figuring out how he can control. And it seems to me that they've got to explain how in the early seasons, when we went into the Upside Down, there were fully formed versions of the world they lived in. There were buildings, there were people, and so if anything, I think it might be a foreshadowing that they're going to let us know how this mirroring that happens ultimately, how in the world Vecna made that come about. That's my best guess, but I'm not sure. I mean, what do you think?
I'm curious to know the answer to that question too, because I feel like that's something we did not get an answer to, and if anything, it raised more questions because it's like Hawkins was recreated. And then, we saw in the first part in Volume 1 that that it was as if then time froze from the moment that El opened the gate. So I'm not. That's something I wasn't clear about. It's like why is there all of this other stuff in there? Vecna created it, and then why did time freeze? Did he just get like too busy to update it with time, or
right.
what was going on?
They're stuck in 1983, so it's like
they're stuck in 1983.
It's the year that it was the year that one of the characters died. One of the maybe the first sacrifice happened that year.
Barb. Barb. People are still broken up about Barb.
I get that. Why not? I mean, it was tough. It was tough. All right, so that's my turn now, sir.
Yes.
All right, so 11 creates the rip in the wall between Hawkins and the Upside Down. My question is, what are the odds that it will take her death to close the wall?
I've been wondering about that. Is there any way that that 11 can make it out of this alive? And I really don't think so, because I think even though we were talking about, and we took El off the table as the Christ figure, I think the Christ figure of the series, right? And I think that the answer to this is going to be that 11 has to die to close the gate. And I don't think there's really any way around that other than her death. And although, who knows? Maybe you're right, Mark, and maybe Max will get some of the powers. Maybe we'll find it out at the end of the season. 11 dies, and the way that there's resurrection is that Max gets some of the powers, and she gets her own spin-off. I like that. That's my answer. And that's what I think.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that. She, just like El saved her, she then turns around the next season, because she now has powers, and saves El, and they both have been resurrected.
I like that better. I like that better than what I said. I'm going with that. Yeah, let's do that.
They're mirroring saviors of the show, right? Both have died to save everyone, and both have been resurrected. That's possible.
I like that. I'm game for that. Let's see if it happens.
Absolutely.
In a year and a half, whenever the next season comes
Unfortunately, we're looking at least 2024, so that's going to be a long stretch, but it will be worth it. They have been just killing it with this show. It's been amazing. You folks have been amazing. We really appreciate everyone who's hung out with us for this live broadcast. All of you who are listening on the podcast and have stuck with us to the end, we are very thankful for you. Remind everyone, this coming week there will not be a Monday broadcast, because and there's a chance there'll be a Monday broadcast. Let me tell you about that. We will be at Wild Goose this Saturday recording the show, talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. But if there's a way to record this as we're doing it, I'm going to try to, at the very least, have it on my iPhone, and we will upload our experience and share that with everyone at a regular time on Monday the following week. So that'll be happening. But more importantly, we really hope we get to see all of you who are going to be at the Wild Goose at Saturday at the Goosecast stage at 4:15. It's going to be a good time.
Woo!
Caleb, cheers, sir. Great show.
Cheers, Mark. Cheers to all of you.
Moonshine Jesus.